people who do get paid enough for this crap. What's your job? Trashman here. I literally deal with people's crap. I get paid enough. 10 years in and 80K plus a year. More this year because COVID-19 overtime. Long edit. Wanted to say thanks for all the appreciation and karma and add some details to some of the more frequent questions. Some of this will be specific to my region and my situation. I work in Kansas. I do not work for a union or government. I work for one of the 3 largest publicly traded trash companies in North America. The reason I make as much as I do has a lot to do with the market I work in. It's an open market, meaning we have competition from about a dozen other trash companies. This means we have to take all their trash and go out of our way to provide better service for our customers, so we get paid more. If the company had a contract to service the entire city alone, I would make less. Even a town 45 minutes away that we own a separate branch is maxed out at around $50K a year because that trash for that city is under contract. I also do all the driving and work myself. I'm the only one on this truck. There's no helper for me. This varies regionally. In my first year, 2010, I made $45K and have made more each year. Last year I made $70K. This year I'll be over $80K, but the majority of this year's increase will be from extra overtime from the time it took to pick up everybody's trash while they were stuck at home for quarantine. If you want to do this for a living, I can tell you a few things. You need a CDL and a clean driving record. You have to have a sense of humor and empathy for people. I pick up used tampons and applicators on the ground if they spill out. I pick up diapers. I pick up needles. I've thrown away dead dogs. Poor neighborhoods have a lot more trash than rich neighborhoods because the cheap crap that Walmart and dollar stores sell break often. Low-income families can't afford the fanciest, no-odor, stretch-to-not-break trash bags. Their trash bags are cheap and will rip easy. It's not their fault, they're just doing the best they know how. Things happen in people's lives which you don't know why, and they don't know what to do, so they just want to get rid of it the easiest way they can think of, the trash. The trucks break down a lot. I'm typing this out while the mechanic is working on my truck. You have to be able to deal with things out of your control. Lastly, I'll add that while this is fantastic money, I'm also at the top. I'm 35 years old. Can I see myself doing this for 30 more years? Hopefully not, but there's nowhere to go within the company and make the same money, so I treat it as a short-term situation. This is the 6th deadliest job in America. One wrong step or move and I'm on disability or worse. Those of you that are saying you don't make this much with your degrees have to remember this isn't a permanent gig. If I could find something easier on the mind and body but paid less, I might look into it. Cheers, and remember to be kind to one another. We all have smelly trash. Story 2. 8 years ago, my ex-wife walked out on me because we lived paycheck to paycheck after being medically discharged from the military, was suffering from severe PTSD, was diagnosed with liver cancer that same week. I was highly considering self-unaliving. Once my ex-wife left, I got treated for cancer and went into remission. Meanwhile, I was doing truck driving and training and going to therapy. I began truck driving cross-country in the US. It was so liberating and never deal with bosses or people, really. I get a message like a text where to pick up and where to deliver with the pay rate and appointment times. As long as I'm on time, I don't hear from anybody at work. That's the best part. My current wife was tired of me being gone so much, and she was tired of her dead office job. She asked if I would want her as my co-driver. I was skeptical if she would want to be on the road with me 24/7. She put herself through truck driving school, and we began driving together. I've never felt so happy and complete in life. We've been driving together for 3 years now. We bought our own truck and live very comfortable. We take $120K a year each. I'm only 32 and plan on retiring at 40. Can I just shout out, that's true love. If your wife is literally willing to go to truck school and drive with you on the road 24/7 just to be with you and make a little extra money, that's pretty fantastic. Story 3. No college, shaky resume because I was picky and fickle in my 20s. I was starving in an apartment I could barely afford and asked the waithouse manager, who was paying me $14 an hour after 2 years, for a $1 raise, so I had $30 for groceries every week. He said no. I hopped on Craigslist from my desk at work. After a rigorous series of 3 interviews, I was hired by a family-owned and run drug testing facility. I watch people pee who have been arrested or have CPS up their ass under a contract with the courthouse. Every 8-hour shift, I watch about 10 people pee and send emails from an air-conditioned office space. It started at $16, and I got a dollar raise every 5 months. 2 years in, I make $20 to do an absolute cushy job. I do not starve. I moved to the city, I bought my first vehicle with no cosigners, my whole life has turned around. A few months back, they put me in charge of the satellite office. I work with one female, and the two of us do everything by ourselves. After 15 years of working crap jobs in food and warehouses, I actually know how lucky I got, and I don't wake up miserable about going to work. I definitely get paid enough for the one or two cheaters a month who get rude with me. I'm not in customer service. The clients, slash money and payments, are legally required to attend their appointments with me, so there's no real risk of not making enough to keep running. My job is the best thing that's happened to me. I feel a true sense of freedom in my personal life. I save between $300 to $400 every month. I eat anywhere I want, anytime I want. I'm a single man with no obligations to anyone but me. It's great. Story 4. Proofreader. I basically just make our company's stuff look like it was written by someone who paid attention in English class. I used to do the same thing, but I didn't get paid enough to do it. Ridiculous deadlines, everything was always getting blown way out of proportion, lower pay, constant overtime due to intentional understaffing. I do way less work and get paid more now, and everyone is much chiller about the process. Story 5. Throwaway for job safety. I'm a senior financial analyst in a manufacturing plant. My plant is very busy, making products that have seen tremendous demand increase since COVID hit. When COVID hit, they sent all of finance to work from home to minimize exposure, and we're still telecommuting. My workload has fallen off the table as I've made improvements to shortcuts and macros to do my work. My 40-ish hour job now takes me 20. The rest of the time, I just wiggle my mouse browsing Reddit, YouTube, etc. I pick up groceries, run errands and appointments, and other leisurely activities during my workday. I'm convinced nobody has a clue. I'm salaried and I'm pulling north of $100K USD. The kicker is everyone loves me and talks about all the great reports I run and processes I own. So when someone asks me to do something, I happily do it. I've got plenty of free time and definitely do get paid for that. Story 6. I'm an audiobook narrator. I basically get paid to stand in a 4x4 booth and pretend to be other people for a few hours a day. And then I spend a lot of time prepping manuscripts and doing research and researching and learning dialects and accents and other various things. I also work as a television producer in sports, but there's not a lot of that going on right now. My schedule is extremely flexible. I have complete control over it. I'm pretty much my own boss, and so neither job is very stressful. The pay is okay. It's not huge, but quality of life is so much better that to me, it feels like I make $1 million a year. Update. Here's a link to a AMA I did 3 years ago. Things have changed a little bit, but a lot of the basic stuff is still pretty relevant. At this point in my career, I've narrated over 80 audiobooks, so about 20 a year. Story 7. This is a front page post, so no one will see me reply, but me when COVID isn't happening. I get paid in the high 50s to work at a private school as an experiential educator. I take kids rafting on the river, backpacking on mountains, going camping in tents, going on field trips to farms, hiking through the snow, go ziplining and rock climbing, so on. I'm an experiential educator. I basically get paid to do all my hobbies, but with 4th to 7th grade kids. For some people, sharing tents and cabins with a bunch of 11-year-olds sounds like hell, but I love showing kids how awesome the outdoors are. My favorite trip is caving with 7th graders. We spend 5 days going in and out of really cool caves. I help 12-year-olds scramble over boulders with only headlamps to light their way in the dark. They overcome their fears and squeeze through the tight spaces and come out victorious on the other side. Then we pitch a tent and eat food by campfire, crash down, and scramble up rocks the next day to conquer a mountain. A lot of it is tedious social/emotional work as I coach kids to overcome their fears, but honestly, I love it. Adolescents that normally hate adults slam into me for hugs and give me high fives as they celebrate overcoming their fears. I get paid to be outdoors and having fun with tweens. It's effing awesome. Due to the pandemic, I'm teaching social studies this year. I got my bachelor's in political policy, which qualifies me to be a social studies teacher. It's not bad, but I miss being outdoors. Edit. I guess I should post some downsides to my job. You ever been 2 days into a 5-day trip, had a 12-year-old girl get her first period, and panic desperately, not knowing what to do, so she breaks down in tears and refuses to leave the shower house, but you can't go in because then you're an adult male going into the girl's shower house while a girl is in there telling everyone to go away, and because her asshats of parents don't prepare her for this, after you finally get her to talk to you, you're stuck talking to a girl with ruined underwear about how to use a pad? I have to deal with that kind of bullcrap multiple times a year. Still worth it to get paid money to go on kayaking trips. Story 8. I'm a baker at a major university dining hall. I make cakes and muffins and Rice Krispie treats all from scratch. We also make cookies, but those tend to be frozen place and bake. I bake for up to 1,200 portions of sweets per day, which is at around 20 full sheet pans of products. I'm full-time, 6 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. My take-home pay is not super impressive. However, I have something very rare in the food industry, a union. I'm a proud union worker who is guaranteed a pay raise. I also have full health benefits, including vision and dental, a 401k, and a pension. However, pro or con, depending on how you look at it, I'm a seasonal worker. I only work when school is in session, so I'm off for 3 weeks at Christmas, a week for spring break, 3 weeks in the beginning of summer, and 4 weeks late August to mid-September. I live thrifty and save my money, so I'm living quite comfortably right now. I've been in my job for 6 years and worked my way up from being a cafe attendant to a baker with only on-the-job training. Very happy with my workplace, and the kitchen is a very close group that always makes sure everyone sits and eats together so we can all chat. Story 9. Once upon a time, I was the general manager for a mid-sized off-grid pot grow. My position was paid a combination of salary and performance incentives, essentially bonuses. This crap meant everything. It meant when the power went out in the middle of a rainstorm, I was out in it wiring generators into our breaker box. It meant I was dealing with the heaps of seasonal employees, many of whom were working on a grow because they didn't have the basics to hold down a real job, such as being able to show up on time or show up at all sometimes. It meant dragging vehicles out of ditches and fixing roads with and without tractors, and I could go on. This crap also meant being the buffer between the owner and everyone else, because he was awful at keeping people paid, communicating, treating employees respectfully, whatever. Basically, my mantra the whole time was, but he's paying me to smile and nod and make this work in spite of him. That mantra worked most days. My only qualifications when I showed up for work were that I worked hard, worked eagerly, and could always show up on time. Edit. Compensation pay was pretty great. I'm not rich, but I own my own patch of redwoods now on a year-round creek. An important part of my compensation was I had a free place to live, and was required to live on site, and insisted he pay for every bit of gas I bought so I was able to save. Story 10. High school degree, only always good with technology, and math started at a call center 13 years ago. Figured out those places always need support and a numbers guy. Self-taught in SQL, VBA, VBScript, some Java, and C++. 160K base plus another 10 to 20K in bonuses. Healthcare is paid for, not in Silicon Valley or Silicon Beach. Took the company I work for from doing all reporting by hand to building an ERP with tons of automation and integrations. I've made myself pretty irreplaceable. Not because I made crap janky, but I can find solutions and connect dots faster than most people, lol. Every once in a while, something breaks in the early AM or I get something that needs to be done ASAP. Other than that, I work 3 to 5 hours a day. Story 11. I'm a fixer, or a walking insurance policy. People hire me to fix crap. I'm billed at around $300 to $350 an hour. Obviously, the company gets that and I get a decent salary. The customer pays all travel expenses. I have a literal box of hotel keys. Pre-COVID, on a plane out every Monday morning, on a plane back every Friday night. I'm compensated well, treated well, and I enjoy what I do. The downside is in 5 minutes I could get a phone call to be on a plane to another country for months at a time. I'm expected to know the answers, and if I don't, I'm expected to get them. Some days I have to convince executives and leaders that something is wrong, and I have to provide resolutions for that shortcoming. Other days I may be educating folks on how to do things a little better. I've been before an administrative branch of the U.S. Senate, and my work is going to have a positive effect on most U.S. mill groups. You know, there are certain jobs that I think really are only practical if you're single or don't have like a family to take care of. This is one of those jobs. If you're on the road in different countries for months at a time, I just don't see how it's sustainable to have a healthy relationship with your family. So I'm just going to assume that OP is single here. Story 12. I've worked many jobs over the years. Pizza guy, making pizza and answering orders on the phone, cashier at a grocery store, paint factory worker, paint warehouse loader, Circuit City salesman, cell phone kiosk salesman, in a mall and at Sam's Club, debt collector, AT&T, corporate cell phone sales, bartender, naked model for art classes, painting houses gigs I could find on Craigslist, Uber driver, Lime scooter charger guy, bred golden retrievers for a couple years. They're amazing. Bank executive assistant, bank teller / CSR, got my real estate license, got my insurance license, health, automobile, and life. Server at a Mexican restaurant, dishwasher at a pizza joint. I probably missed a couple in there as well. At the age of 28, I had enough of all this bullcrap. I hate office politics and having dumbass middle managers with less than 100 brain cells to spare micromanaging me while I did my work and theirs, and just crap pay in general for my time. I had a 2.3 GPA after graduating four-year college because I partied and worked and didn't care about my grades enough. Went back to school at 28, took 65 credit hours of high-level science courses in 1 year / summer. Got a 3.55 GPA for those 65 science courses. Average GPA still only 2.75. Studied for the DAT for 8 weeks straight. Scored decently well above average, and after 2 years of applying, got into dental school. Graduated this year. I've been working for 2 months and have more money in my bank account than I've ever had. First time in my life I don't stress about every penny I spend. On target to make $200 to $230K my first year. I honestly don't know what I did to deserve it. It feels like a dream. Lot more to my story than this even. That's the tip of the iceberg. But yeah, I get paid enough to deal with your gross mouth crap. Story 13. I'll start with my salary. I make $182K. I'm an imports manager, and don't let the title fool you. I don't manage people. I manage imports for a manufacturer. Not only do I not manage people, there's nobody else who does what I do at the entire company. My manufacturer is a billion-dollar company. Everything that gets imported goes through me. I decide how much of it to buy, when to buy it, which port it leaves from, which port it comes into, what facility it goes to. I own the inventory from the day it hits the water till the day it's consumed and put into a product. That means that if plants are fighting over my inventory, happens a lot, I get final say on who gets it. In a given day, around $600,000 will move across my desk. I work 10 hours a day, then have to hop on around 9 p.m. to talk to China for an hour usually. I often have to do some work on weekends and always clear my inbox on Sundays because Mondays are my productive day. I can't really take days off. I have to be plugged in on the rare vacation I take, at least minimally. Email and a couple conference calls. Those vacations are still relaxing though. It is a lot of work. A lot of work. The benefits are 1. Money. 2. Nobody else does what I do. If someone pisses me off, I can tell them to pound sand. 5 people failed in my role before me. I'm vital. Nobody else can do what I do. They can get effed. People below me can't tell me off. People at my level can't tell me off. The CEO can't tell me off. 3. I genuinely do love what I do. I wouldn't rather do anything else. 4. What I do may as well be magic as far as everyone else in my business unit is concerned. I wave my hands over the sales forecasts and somehow manage to supply them with material while not having too much inventory. People not understanding what you do gives you a power of mystery that's difficult to describe. You're like a priest of a late Roman cult or something. 5. Mondays are the day I get the most crap done. That's when I move work. You don't schedule meetings with me on Mondays. Everyone knows that now. You do not schedule meetings with me on Mondays, no matter what it is. And I get to have that and enforce it. They know what I do provides a lot of value, and that we'd shut down manufacturing without someone at my desk, so I've basically beaten the company like a money piñata over the last couple years. I started making only $85K, and I've just extorted more and more money from them every year, including this year. They tried to fight me this year. Oh, everyone has to make sacrifices. No, you need me now more than ever. You're moving more things to imports to cut costs. If sacrifices need to be made, find someone else to make them, or I just won't set up all these things you want to be imported. I got what I wanted, so yeah, I get paid enough, but that amount goes up every year until I retire, which, given that I'm getting paid a lot and have no time to spend it, will sneak up on them. They've tried hiring people to help me. Sure, I welcome it. I won't get paid as much, but I won't have to work as much either. Every single one of them has quit in under 4 months, citing the workload and stress. Just an admonition, a word of caution here, because this guy's definitely feeling himself. If you feel like you're irreplaceable at your job, everybody is replaceable. I assure you of that. So just be careful when you fall into that trap of thinking that you're untouchable and can demand whatever you want from a company. Everyone is replaceable. Story 14. Grew up dirt poor in the country, super abusive home, alcoholic stepdad and all that. Kicked out at 16 because aforementioned a-hole. Literally homeless on the street for 3 years, drugs and partying, caught 4 felonies, got out, busted my ass at crappy jobs for years. One year, I remember having 21 W-2s at tax time. Kept doing what I had to do, slowly moving forward and tumbling back often. Got a job as a marketing associate at a smallish company. Operations director position opened up, applied, got it. This led to me realizing that I really liked IT and worked towards that goal. Landed a job in IT that was absolute crap pay, crap hours, and narcissistic boss. Hey, wanted to get experience, so stuck it out. 5 years. During this time, got my bachelor's in MIS. Right after I finished, 12/31/2012, meeting was called. We were told that after 40 years, the company was shutting down as of the end of that meeting. All 300 of us were out of a job, no severance, unemployment only. Took an entire year to find another job during that year. We somehow managed to survive on $8,000. Wife, me, and 3 kids. Landed a kind of below my skill set desk side support contractor job, but hey, it was a job and better than unemployment. 7/2014. Company I was working for is a F200 manufacturing company. Had open position that I applied for and went through the gauntlet of interviews and landed that job just 8 months later. Same job I have now. Principal robotics and infrastructure architect. Responsible for 13 of our sites globally. $165K total comp, and I live in one of the lowest cost of living areas in the country. Lesson: don't let anyone make you believe that your starting line and background is a guaranteed crap life. It'll be harder, sometimes way harder, but put in the work and always be moving forward. If you fall back, get up, dust off, recalibrate, and keep moving forward. Story 16. Drafter. Metal building design, barns, hangars, storage, etc. Spending over a week on a difficult job only for the client to change design at the 11th hour and try to intimidate us into holding to the original timeframe despite agreed upon contract clauses giving us extra time for scope of work changes. Trying to support end users who are operating out of the field. Calling on a moldy potato phone with spotty coverage and thick local accents, who don't have the original documentation because they're the third owner, and they need the site back in operation last week. Fielding angry calls from people trying to claim our fault that an 80-year-old building with no maintenance and a 30-year waterproof warranty now leaks from the roof. Said building would have remained waterproof had it not been for a small structural fire, which was thankfully reported to us by the angry owner's son, who was managing most of the day-to-day operations. Dealing with builders who have absolutely no business erecting a Lego set, much less several thousands of pounds of structural steel that's going to house a municipal rescue aircraft. Deciding to not use the clearly labeled plans and material. Instead, just use their own judgment to place 30 to 50 distinctly different but similar looking metal columns, then call us to complain that the structural braces don't fit at the locations shown. It's fun to let some of these people speak to my manager because he has no filter and no time for BS. I don't get paid as much as our engineers, but at the end of the day, I get paid well for what I do, and I know that my boss and the owners have my back when I dig in my heels on a nasty customer call. So that's something that you can't put a price on, is having coworkers and superiors that will always have your back when you're just doing your job. So I'd say you're pretty well off, my friend. Good job. Story 17. When the war in Syria has started, I lost a lot of people and had been diagnosed with severe depression and COD and COPD. One day, we've been arguing about our future there, and we decided to move to a better country where we can feel safe and sleep without fear of losing someone. We've sold our house and our car and traveled around Syria for 6 hours in order to find a way so we can cross the borders without harm. We've managed to find a way with the help of some people, and we crossed the borders to Turkey. We've lived there for about 3 years. Life there was really hard. We've been robbed twice, and they broke into our house and burned it while we were sleeping. We called the police, and they came 6 hours later. Thank God no one was hurt that day. After a few months, we've contacted a dealer so he can take us to Greece by the sea. Paid him 7 times 1,200 euros, everything we had that day. In the evening, we've received a call from the dealer, and he said it's time. So we packed up and went there at 11 p.m., so the Turkish army won't notice us. Indeed, they were waiting for us between the trees, and have been sent back to jail for 2 days. And then, after all that, we took our money from the last dealer and paid another one. For the second time, the Coast Guards caught us in the sea and shot a boat made of balloon holding 62 people. We've been again transferred back to Turkey after refusing to pay them so they can deliver us to Greece peacefully. The third time was a success. We made it to an island and we were drowning. A boat from the Coast Guards saw us and they came to help. That was when I felt miserable. Like, why is this happening only to us? What have we done? We stayed in Greece for about a year, and Germany has accepted our application. We're now in Germany since 2017, and that time for 3 years I got sick. I couldn't go to school or work. I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't eat well. Till this day, I've learned Spanish. I got C1 in English and B2 in German, and started to work with TaskRabbit platform, waiting for my bachelor's degree to be approved so I can go to an acting academy. That was a really rough time we had over the past years, and still searching for therapy here, hoping one day I would feel a lot better than now. Story 18. I'm not here to comment on my job. All I'm here to say is that this is a lesson to anyone out there that education is not the key to financial success. College isn't for everyone, and the world needs to accept that. This is coming from someone with 8 years of post-secondary education, medical school, applying for first residency job. I'll maybe make $50K next year, likely less, as a 30-year-old. Keep that wage for 5 years, then eventually make 6 figures after that when I'm almost 40. I'll love my job, so it's totally fine, and I could care less at this point. I just want to go to work and like what I'm doing. My brother, meanwhile, was berated by my parents his entire life for, quote, not doing as well as me, yet is now 22, living on his own, making $75K plus in a job he loves, manufacturing job in nutrition. He's a great dude and is loved by his coworkers, so he kept his position in a sea of COVID layoffs because of that, and is expected for a promotion when the world returns to normalcy. Because of the way my parents treated him, his mental health suffered for years, being seen as a failure, and he's just now coming to peace with it. It was so sad to see him grow up like that, but I'm glad he stood his ground over the years. I'm just happy to see so many people in various fields satisfied and actually rewarded for hard, often blameless work. And a lesson to parents out there: if your kid says he wants to follow their dreams or just do something else instead of being a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, please let them. They'll most likely do better in life and be happier than they would if they just tried to appease you or society at large. Story 19. I work in IT. Spent the last 2 years working in a LAAS as a level 2 technician. Didn't get paid anything exceptional, $19 an hour. I was so distraught with my income and lack of growth, I basically said, okay, F it. I'm applying everywhere and I'll see what happens. I stumbled across a network administrator contractor job for the federal government and thought, well, I'll give it a shot, as my degree isn't in networking, but InfoSec. So I applied, got the interview at the company that's the subcontractor for the actual contract holder. They asked if I could run cabling, set up switches, diagram networks, and so on, and I responded, yeah, that's basically what I do a lot of now, and a lot of endpoint configuration and troubleshooting. So they tell the actual client, the contract holder, and the contract holder then has an interview where they can ask if I can set up WANs, if I can configure routers, etc. Naturally, I have a basic understanding of how to do these things, but have never actually done it in a production environment, so I said, no, I've done it in labs only, but I have a good understanding of networking, and I'll work hard to progress and learn in the position. They didn't give a very good response, and I thought I was SOL, so I just shrugged and said, oh well, try for another. Then, 2 days later, the subcontractor company calls me back and says I'm good to go and can start in 2 weeks, and they'll start me out at $61K a year. I jump with joy and immediately start brushing up on my knowledge. I then get to where I'm working, 6 hours away from where me and my family were living at the time, and come to find out, the job is stupid simple. I'm not doing anything the contract holder thinks I am. I basically run cable for new devices, manage switches, and what can be called an entirely segregated LAN with no upstream connection, barring a few exceptions, with absolutely no router configuration at all in the topology. After being here for only about 3 months, I can say with absolute certainty I'm getting paid more than enough for what I deal with, which at most is running cable through ceilings and making sure this LAN is working, which is extremely simple to do. Also, first post on Reddit, just to exude my happiness over the change. Story 20. I'm a sewage and waterworks public employee for the city of Paris. We can't work more than 4 hours a day, underground, get off at 1:30 p.m., start at 6:50 though, get 45 days of paid holiday, and get a bonus of 10 years into our retirement, meaning that after 20 years of service, they consider you've worked 30, which allows us to retire on a full pension by the age of 52. The job itself is mostly walking the underground galleries and sewers of Paris, which is nowhere near as bad as it sounds unless you're claustrophobic, to make sure there are no cracks or any other problems down there, and report them when there are. I mostly deal with what we call accompanying, which is basically guiding people down the galleries for whatever reason. Usually there's construction work above the surface and they need access to the sewers. When a resident or property manager complains about weird smells in the basement or even rats, cockroaches, etc., etc. We don't get paid a lot, but we certainly get paid well for what we do, and the risks today are still existent, but very minimized with all the equipment we have, and our salaries are raised every year. I started 4 years ago, and my salary's been increased significantly since. Story 21. Fresh out of film school, I got a paid internship at one of my favorite production companies. After the internship ended, they kept me on as an assistant to the CEO's assistant and paid me what came out to $35 an hour to read scripts and take celebrities to fancy dinners and lunches, while my boss or my boss's boss would have to finish up some work. I would have a corporate card, so I never had to pay. They usually would either rent a really nice car or lend me theirs to drive too. So I get to drive a fancy car, go to super expensive restaurants, and hang out with celebrities for $35 an hour plus overtime. When I wasn't doing that, I would just read. It was literally the best job I've ever had, the kind where I would have probably paid to do it. But I was making $35 an hour, which was a crazy amount of money for someone my age. Unfortunately, the gig only lasted like 6 months, but it was awesome while it lasted. After that, I got another job at a rival production company. That only paid $12 an hour, but my job was basically to sit on Dig all day and look for news stories that could inspire new movies. This is what started my Reddit addiction. Yeah, that is dedication to your craft if you're willing to accept a pay cut of $35 an hour to $12 an hour at a rival company. So glad that you're happy, OP. That is, it's inspirational. Story 22. Flight simulator technician. I'm an apprentice level and I get paid $23 plus an hour. All I do is work on my sim or whatever sim in a giant air-conditioned place and go home. They used to feed up to 2 times a week pre-COVID. I do not clock in or out. I don't have to clock in or out for lunch either. I don't get bothered unless there's a task someone needs me to do. I show up a little late and no one cares. We do not request time off. We tell them we're taking time off. The benefits are absolutely amazing. My health insurance is incredible. I get to fly simulators every single day, sit at a desk for about a couple hours, work on something that's broken, do routine inspections, and just kind of do whatever. There are no set tasks. You just show up and do what you know you need to do. I'm on my phone like 80% of the shift and nobody cares as long as you get your work done. I started this when I was 19. I'm 21 currently. This job has enabled me to travel wherever, have a stacked savings account, buy whatever I please, and just live a comfortable life. I couldn't be happier. This place is a pretty sweet gig. Story 23. Somehow, through various work connections, I fell into a small family-owned company as a sales rep. Leads come to me, I demo products for the prospect, 45-minute screen sharing session, and send some follow-up materials. The base pay is $72K a year, and the commission puts me at just under $100K a year. It's the easiest job I've ever done. Pre-COVID, I'd travel around to awesome cities about 10 times a year for work, stay in top-notch hotels, go to whatever sporting event or concert is happening that night, saw Dead & Co. at Madison Square Garden, a game at Fenway, Bruins and Lightning playoff game at TD Garden, a game at Nationals Park, Dropkick Murphys at House of Blues Boston, Hamilton on Broadway. I give presentations at conferences and then am free to explore the cities afterwards and have a good time. The position rarely opens up, so it was just pure luck I got in through this one connection. I socked away about $32,000 in the last couple years. I had a good sales month in September and am getting a $3,700 commission check tomorrow morning. I'm working half as hard as I ever have, and I'm making 2.5 times more than I ever have. It's just pure, unfiltered privilege. I'm extremely lucky. Story 24. Used to be a nuclear power technician. I got paid $65K a year, worked 100 hours a week, went several months at a time between days off, watched coworkers, bosses get divorced, have nervous breakdowns, break their hands punching walls, get blackout drunk 3 nights a week, attempt self-unaliving, get thrown in jail when someone finds a mistake in the paperwork and someone's head has to roll. And all the while, your bosses are trying to convince you you're trash and you better not leave because you'll never find a job as good as this one. Only worth it if you have extreme dependency issues and absolutely no imagination. Now I'm a software engineer in Silicon Valley. On call every few weeks, sometimes have to work 60 hours in a week, but I make enough that I can donate 10% to charity and still be on track to retire when I'm 55 if I want to, while working with traffic people at a terrific company building a product that we generally believe is going to pull humanity into a brighter future. Intellectually, most difficult job I've had by far, exhausting at times, absolutely worth it. Story 25. Believe it or not, I'm just a bartender at a dive bar and I get paid enough. I make 80 to 90K a year, give or take 5K. Only pay taxes on about 35K and get to have fun and meet new people every day. Sure, it can suck, and when it gets busy, there's stress involved, but I'm really good with people. Actually, my bartending skills are probably just average anymore because I'm 35 now and I've been doing this for 12 years, so I'm sure I'm not near as quick as I used to be. I think I may be an empath or whatever they call it because I'm very good at picking up someone's mood or energy and can then go from there to make them like me. All I need is a place that's at least somewhat steady with business, and people will end up tipping me way over the standard 20 to 25%. Last year, I got at least 20 $100 tips, 8 to 9 $200 to $300 tips, and 4 $500 tips. Although the $500 ones were from the same person. And no, I didn't do anything extra for it. Treat people nice and show genuine concern for them, and people will throw money at you. Story 26. I own and operate a motel in an incredibly busy summer resort town. For 6 months of the year, we work like absolute dogs. On call 24/7, we eat, sleep, and breathe the motel. Summer becomes the bane of your existence. While you watch all your friends go boating, beaching, pooling, etc., you always are on edge, because if you aren't on site at 60 plus hours a week, you're running things from remote software 24/7, never able to take your eye off the ball. We're sold out almost every day and night, so if even one thing goes wrong, there's no wiggle room, no extra room to move someone to. It's a pressure cooker for 4 months straight. There are customer calls all through the day and night. You're absolutely crapped on and abused because it's a customer service job first and foremost, but you add to the safety factor. People could drown in the pool, fires have started, people have tripped in the parking lot, drunken guests, fights, domestic abuse situations, even though this is an expensive town, still happens. Then you add into that one of the highest turnover rates of any industry, housekeepers, and we're constantly hiring and running threadbare without enough help. It's so much stress. Most hotel managers in my town go a little bat crap crazy after 5+ years on the job. It's all day and night, every day and night, for about 5 months. And then, like Kaiser Soze, October hits and whoosh. The town dries up, the tourists leave, the motel closes, and I sleep from November to February, prepare for the opening during February, March, and April, and then start it all over again Memorial Day weekend. For this, I do all right. Story 27. I'm a backpacker in Australia. I come from France. I've been away from my country for a year now, and I'm doing a final job before to go home, which is working in a famous food company on night shift. I'm paid 29 Australian dollars an hour, 19 US dollars, for 38 hours and 45 Australian dollars an hour, 29 US dollars an hour, above 38 hours. It's 1,200 Australian dollars, 850 US dollars, for 5 days a week, and 1,500 Australian dollars, or 1,000 US dollars, for 6 days for stacking bags on pallets at the end of a chain, some cleaning, and other tasks. I was broke as hell when I found this job. I spent 2 weeks, almost the whole day, sending applications for a job by 50 to 60. I had 105 Australian dollars in my bank account and put $10 on my train card to go to the agency for an interview. So I had 50 cents left. They called me to tell me that I started the night after. I've been working here for almost 2 months. I could buy my plane ticket back to France, save $2K, pay room for the stay, food, and some extras, and buy the iPhone 11 128 gig cash, which is the first thing that I'm buying brand new cash in my life. I'm 26 years old. Guys, I feel so blessed for this. Story 28. I used to work as a cart guy at a country club, pretty much show up at 3, sit back at the cart barn until the front of the house people brought back some carts, wash those, put whatever leftover beer that was in the coolers in our fridge, go and drop washed carts up at the front of the house. Did this until about 8 to 10. Then would go collect carts, clean carts, plug in carts, worked until about midnight. About 23 hours of overtime at the time and a half at $22.50 an hour. Most of that 23 hours was spent blasting music and drifting carts into their parking spots in the cart barn, and drinking beer that had been getting cold in the fridge for the past 3 to 7 hours. When the carts were done, we had to make a round around the whole course to make sure no one was around the course, or to find any that people left out. This was usually turned into a sightseeing, beer-drinking, golf club swinging good time for about an hour. Got paid about $58K a year for this. The hours were pretty long, but I shared a house with my coworkers, so we all had the same schedule. Story 29. Mine is a unique situation, like most top comments on here. My oldest daughter suffered a birth injury that resulted in a severe brain injury. She's doing well despite it and is very happy and sweet, but has been diagnosed with epilepsy, cerebral palsy, and a few other chronic conditions. Because we live in Florida, there's an organization that she automatically qualified for due to her injury, and once she was enrolled, all of her health expenses are covered. On top of that, one of her parents is reimbursed for her medical care above and beyond what a parent of a typical child has to do. It started at $15 an hour for 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. Not too shabby, but I was able to get a CNA, which allows me to be reimbursed at the same rate, but for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I get $132K per year for being with my daughter and other 2 kids, which is all I'd want to do anyway. The real kicker? It's completely untaxed. Our tax returns show very little income, but if we need financing or anything, we can get a letter saying what our income actually is, and banks/credit unions are totally cool with it. It definitely makes the best lemonade out of life's lemons. Story 30. I'm a frontline worker at a drive-through COVID test center. There's no experience required because you start as a volunteer and then join staff. I get paid $20 an hour despite the minimum wage in my state being $15 an hour. My job is to sit in a shady tent and type people's appointment numbers into a computer, write the numbers on the test, and use a grabber to hand them their tests. They give us all the PPE we need: KN95, surgical mask, face shield, gloves, etc. We also get free COVID tests as often as we want. Because it's all outside, we work hour on, hour off shifts so we don't get heat stroke. The best part is they pay us for the hour off, so we get paid for 7 hours a day even though we only work 3.5 hours. Every day I'm getting paid to sit and read my book in the grass for several hours. Also, I get the satisfaction of knowing I'm doing an important job for a nonprofit that will help the community. Story 31. I teach high schoolers. It can be frustrating, and you're basically working with adults who don't know how to adult yet. I get cursed out, threatened, disrespected, etc. Not always, but it happens at least once a week for simply trying to get a kid to try assignments and tasks. I teach computer science in New York State. New York pays their teachers really well. Year 5 about $65K, year 10 about $90K, year 20 about $100K, year 30 $120K. But the real kicker is that you have 2 months off and you get a pension. Do 30 years of work in New York State public schools and you get a pension payout for life that's roughly 64% of your final salary. 64% of $120K is about $75K per year. That's more than most people make working in this state. You also have a pretty strong union and great benefits. We get paid more than enough to teach your kid, but you have to actually enjoy doing this. Kids know how to get under your skin, and they're really, really, really good at it, LOL. Story 32. Solo mechanical shift engineer for a massive production plant in the UK. 150 days work a year, or 12-hour shifts. Very reasonable pay, and I'm left almost completely alone for all of it. My job is just to keep everything running efficiently / limping on until the next scheduled downtime when our Monday to Friday 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. crew can get their hands on it. Due to production demands, I'm literally not allowed to turn machines off to fix them unless it's a production stopper or a quality issue, as it'll ruin an entire batch. I count my pay as being for my worst possible nights. 12 hours of pure hell unblocking wet clay from conveyor belts, chutes, and the cold, wind, rain on my own. Considering that's maybe 5% of the job, absolute max, I couldn't ever want any more for my qualification level. Apprenticeship only, no higher education or degree yet. A good 50% of my job is applying WD-40, then applying a hammer in the secret make it work spot, then making that seem like an appropriate response on the paperwork. Story 33. Financial advisor. I basically get paid to make friends and help them achieve goals they might have thought impossible. I like to golf, so I play in a golf league 3 times a week and BS with wealthy people. When something comes up, I'm there to answer questions and bring solutions to the table they probably didn't know existed. When I'm not golfing, my day is spent chatting on the phone with clients that feel more like friends at this point about what's going on in their life. If you're good at your job, people really don't get mad at you too often. Not to say that if you're good, a portfolio will never go down in value, but if you're doing things right, they shouldn't have sell while the value is down. Risk tolerance and time frame dictates investment mix. I try not to let clients get into a position where they might have to sell long-term investments when the unexpected happens. The biggest selling point for me is the work-life balance, though. I'm my own boss and only have one employee. I dictate my schedule so I can make sure I never miss out on anything in my family's life. I typically work about 30 hours a week if you count the golf, and almost always have weekends off. Sometimes I feel guilty that this is considered work. It's not uncommon for an advisor to make around $300K a year. I'm not at that point yet, but as long as I can cover the bills, I'm happy considering what my days look like. Story 34. Information security. I'm actually relatively underpaid compared to my field, but the benefits are where I really get paid. My health insurance cost is almost zero. Seriously, like less than $10 a week for full coverage. And in the past 3 years, I've had a pair of inpatient surgeries with multi-day visits that cost me $0 out of pocket. Before COVID, I had multiple WFH days a week, and now it looks like I'm transitioning to permanently remote. But the best part of my job is the attitude from management. I actually work for a very large company, which is what makes this all the more surprising. Our goals are realistic and achievable, and from when I get hired as an associate, the attitude of management has always been the same. Whether it was my boss, their boss, their boss, or their boss, the first question has always been, did the work get done? And if the answer is yes, there are no more questions. If the answer was no, then the follow-up was, is there a good reason it didn't? And if that answer was yes, there is no hostile follow-up, just a discussion on how to prevent that situation moving forward. All of this means the world to me because I entered the field with no formal education in the industry. I'd gotten out of college and into banking and burned myself out. I only semi-jokingly tell people that I needed to get out, because if I didn't, I was going to unalive myself eventually. The only question was whether it'd be with a bottle, a heart attack, or a shotgun. I was so disillusioned. I got promoted every single year I was in banking, and it was the worst thing that happened to me. Promotions are weaponized in the banking world. It's a great way to move valuable assets up the chain, but with capped percentage raises, I found myself, after 4 promotions in 4 years, making roughly 45% of the external candidate hired to fill the other position on my team. I was rubbing pennies to get by, but I didn't have the money to be able to move jobs at the time, as nothing in the field was on the public transit line. When I interviewed for the position I got hired for, an associate level position, I did it with no expectation I would get the job. A friend forwarded on my resume, and I mostly intended to go through the process, learn what sort of stuff I would need to know, and try to get some certs in the meantime. However, they liked the logic of my answers to the questions, how quickly I picked things up, and my ability to create a proper workflow on a macro level, despite having no concept of how to implement it, and they decided they would teach me. Then they gave me 20% more than I asked for my salary. That meant the world to me because it made such a meaningful difference in my quality of life right then and there. A few years and a promotion later, my direct manager took a position at a different company and attempted to poach me. While I loved her, I wound up declining because I went from a decade in an industry where I would wake up Monday to Friday dreading going to work, be unable to go to sleep Sunday to Thursday because I was dreading work in the morning, and spending my weekends trying to recharge my batteries from the stress, to being able to enjoy my life every day. And when my company asked what it would take to keep me, I gave them a salary number that, for me, meant I would be able to live a reasonably comfortable life, and salary beyond that would need to be on a different stratosphere to be meaningful. They gave it to me, and I've been there ever since. I refuse all phone calls. My finances are secure, my stress levels are down, and my pride in myself is up. That's the pay I needed. Story 35. I teach programming and engineering at an international school in China. It's a lot of work, but I'm in a massive makerspace of my own design, surrounded by all of the tools I like to work with. The kids have fun in my classes and put in a ton of effort. There's less pressure because of the project-based atmosphere and the core subjects I teach. I save around $25,000 a year and spend my breaks traveling Vietnam, Thailand, Korea, Japan, and the rest of Asia. I have a housekeeper who cooks for me and live in one of the nicer apartments I lived in on a beautiful campus. Obviously, travel isn't too much of an option this year, but I'm still able to travel around one of the most beautiful countries in the world, and I'm saving even more. I wake up literally excited to be headed to work each day. Life is good. Story 36. I work in enterprise software sales. Earnings can vary depending on performance, but it's not uncommon to consistently earn $200K plus per year. The job itself is a lot of fun. You get to act as a consultant and technical resource for executives and large companies shopping for technology to roll out across their companies. This includes presenting, demoing, and working with multiple departments to plan for implementation. I work from a home office and have been doing so for a few years. In normal times, there's a good amount of travel for on-site presentations, which is exciting. I make my own hours, have only 2 meetings with my boss per week, and have unlimited PTO. Most days consist of doing calls to help build relationships with the execs I sell to. I was a poor performing student in high school and never thought I'd be in a position like this, advising business execs and leaders. I admit there is some luck and networking involved to get into the industry, but hard work and dogged persistence can go a long way. Story 37. A few years ago, my sister and her family moved out to the ass end of Prince Edward Island, and after a bit, her husband started absolutely raving about a brewery near them. A couple years later, me and the parents go out for a visit, and me and the old man decide to check out this brewery as it can't be much worse than the piss water at the small town liquor stores way out in the boons. So we're driving out further into the country and then into the woods, and at the exact moment we think we've been had, there's a series of signs that say something like, "Yes, this is the way to the brewery, keep going," and then opens up onto this coastal view with a huge old garage on one side. Inside the garage, there's a bar and a bunch of brewing equipment. We get a tasting flight, IPA, oyster stout, red ale, and more I can't recall. Every single one of them absolutely amazing beers. We can't believe that we've never heard of this place before. Are you guys going to expand operations? Nah, the owner makes enough to supply a few bars in the area, one over in Chinatown and whoever drives out to the brewery. It covers expenses and lets him do what he loves. He's not interested in making it more complicated. Life goals defined. Anyone that wants to go for a beer pilgrimage, the name of the place is Moth Lane Brewing, and I can't recommend it highly enough. Story 38. Government contractor. TLDR. A bit of Linux EXP, a Sec Plus cert, and the ability to work for a government contractor nets you 80 plus with decent bennies, good leave and holidays, and a solid 8 to 5 to work on cool systems with almost no heartburn. I grew up pretty poor. Mom got $250 a month with 4 kids from a crummy dad. I had a home situation that left me alone and homeless at 15, so I didn't finish high school. I messed up a lot between 15 and 21. Met a girl and I wasn't a complete craphead, so things started moving forward in the right direction. But I had a bunch of those don't get paid enough for this crap jobs. Then one day, I answered an ad for a call center gig doing computer support. I don't know, computers just make sense to me. As it turns out, if you dig in and understand the systems you work on, people will pay you a lot because you're a wizard or some crap. I still say every day, I don't get it. I don't have any superpowers. Anyway, I eventually answered an ad that required you could work for the government. Basically, you needed to pass a background check and get a security plus cert. Those two things put together can get you an additional 20 to 40K a year, not including your already good pay. In the end, I'm a kid from bad circumstances whose ability to make Doom play on a 486 DX100 allowed themselves to break the cycle and go to work loving the day of logic puzzles. This is how I view what I do. I get to pound through. My day is basically start with health checks on systems, build computer clusters, update software, and some security engineering. No end users support, really. The hardest part is giving my kids the do well in school talk with them knowing I have a 10th grade education. I keep trying to get more family and friends who are stuck in a rut to go out and hit up Linux Academy to do the Red Hat RHCSA course, get a Sec Plus, and to look for entry-level spots. They start on the low side at 60K. I have a friend that started at 90 without EXP. Story 39. I'm part of a high-skill team that manages about 10 PB of primary data and 50 PB of backup data. There are complex politics around helping the capable get what they need to do the work effectively and comfortably. So much is about finding the people who speak the right language for each of the parts, and connecting them together in the right ways to improve things versus hinder things. We find a few people who can do a disproportionate number of things, or can do a specific thing very efficiently, and try to rebalance the workload based on what each person is best at within their range of preferences. Also, handing off workload to competent resources is key, because no one person knows it all and has the time. In general, the more capable someone is, the easier it is for them to burn out, so it's important to factor recovery time in. I'm in the slot of admin duties plus technical duties, trying to manage my own burnout, get to know new people, fit resources without being unfair to people, manage external expectations, pre-existing relationships, etc. It's exhausting, hopeless at times, but it has some very rewarding moments too. In the end, nothing is better than having some great people with you and realizing you actually helped someone, or made something better, or had help and patience from someone when things were tough. Story 40. I'm unemployed right now because of COVID-19, but of the many jobs I've had in my life, one of my favorites was definitely being a pizza delivery driver in Portland, Oregon. It didn't pay much, but it was stupid easy work, and for whatever reason, the other drivers were pretty terrible at their jobs, so when they made me a driver, they were super impressed with how well I was doing this very easy job. I was never stressed for time because each pizza had a 15-minute time slot, and our delivery radius wasn't very big. If I had to drive from one end to the other, it would maybe be 15 minutes max, but that was rare. It was also not my car or my gas, which was a huge perk, though coincidentally I drove the same type of car, so it felt like driving my own car. Sometimes I helped cook pizzas if deliveries were minimal, but usually I was just waiting for orders to come up, and I'd finish the night with a few dishes and sweeping the floor, but it was pretty light cleaning. So basically, I just drove around listening to podcasts, delivering pizza to mostly friendly or grateful people. It wasn't my car or my gas, so it was pretty damn easy work. Would have been nice to get paid a more livable wage, but it wasn't stressful work at all. Story 41. I work as an architectural designer in NYC with 2.5 years of experience. Right now, I make a little over $60K a year, benefits, etc. NYC is an expensive place, but luckily, I live in New Jersey, where my rent and expenses are considerably more affordable, so I can save a lot on cost. My commute is only a short train ride away. I'm working on my licensing exams, and once I pass all 6 sections, I can legally refer to myself as an architect. Once I'm licensed, I can definitely climb the ladder in pay, 75K plus, or even start my own firm and try to grow my own business. The job is pretty cool and has exposed me to a bunch of different project types and personalities. Currently, I work on luxury retail flagships, healthcare, and commercial jobs. It can be stressful at times since there are occasions when hours can get a bit long or clients/contractors get upset about mistakes on a project. Overall, I like the job and the opportunity it gives me to work or even switch to different occupations if I want to make a career change, like real estate, construction management, building code, consulting. Most people from the outside looking in like to glorify the work and think that we're star architects working on skyscrapers around the world, but once you get past that assumption, things appear more realistic. There are so many practices or subfields of architecture to specialize in, from education to aviation or residential. To my surprise, when I let people know what I do for a living, they always mention that it's interesting and have a bunch of questions about the job because they've never actually met an architect before. Story 42. Lawyer. Not a big-time firm guy like everyone thinks. Paper pusher. Started in 60K, now closing in on 100K. I regret it every day. I envy people who make less and have passion for their jobs. I'm miserable. I know I was meant to do something so much better. I truly think I'm creative and smart and really outgoing. I say that not to brag, but because I use none of that. I think it's all because I provided a great life for my family and kids. I always say you get through the workday to enjoy the family time. I'm only being gloomy in case anyone thinks the extra money really matters. At what cost? Maybe if it was a ton of money, that's different, like 500K plus. But my father made over $1 million his whole career and suffered depression, and the biggest regret is not coming home till 10 p.m. every night. I'm still young, but switching careers is not really in the picture. It wouldn't be smart for my family. As long as I can keep forcing it, this is fine. No, I'm not really depressed. Just sad I don't get to use what I think are my real talents. Okay, so 2 things to unpack here. Number 1, you cannot put a price on your happiness or sanity. There's no amount of money or salary that you can make that would make your peace of mind worth it. And secondly, it is never too late to change careers. Whether it seems practical or not, sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you just have to go for it. So I just want to encourage people out there that feel stuck, go ahead and take the leap of faith and the net will appear, as they say. Story 43. Wasn't much of a student, barely skated through high school. It was so bad that I was still in freshman and sophomore classes as a senior. Started working in a panel shop where we built and wired electrical control panels for automation equipment. As time went on, I was bounced from trade job to trade job electrician, pipe fitter, mechanist, carpenter, and more. I was fired from basically 9 different jobs, had what you may call a colorful childhood that at some point landed me 38 points on my driving record. Finally found a job where I could do as I wanted, started learning CAD, and worked myself into an office job. After self-promoting myself as a project manager, I couldn't understand why we had to pay PLC programmers so much money. So I asked one of the guys I hired for a job, that doesn't look that hard, show me how to do that. His reply was like, nah, you just keep hiring me. I told him we no longer needed his help. He then caved and started showing me what ladder logic was and some basics. Turns out I was born to be a PLC programmer. It seems so easy to me, and I have since been working as an independent contractor for the last 12 years. I've been blown away at some of the rates I quote different companies and how gracefully and excitedly they quickly say, excellent, when can you start? Got 4 kids, stay-at-home wife, and live very comfortably. I even made my good friend from childhood quit his job and learn to do it as well. Michigan has a very large manufacturing economy, and the work is always available. Most of the places I work think of me as a hero. It's kinda odd and fun at the same time. I was supposed to be a loser or dead by now, if you asked anyone that knew me from my messed up years, but somehow ended up being the smart one in the room at meetings with Ford, Zeiss, GM, ABB, and many more companies. My grammar hasn't gotten any better, but I don't care. I really love doing what I do. Story 44. I work as a sales representative for a relatively large distribution company. Not as big as Amazon, but like it, for a niche market. I basically process sales through fax, emails, and calls. I also get the calls where people are pissed about their orders, etc. The angry customers aren't as bad as a typical Walmart Karen, but it gets old. However, entry pay is over twice minimum wage. More if you work in the warehouse. And the health insurance is literally the best. I have a $20 copay, and that's it. They also have an on-site employee walk-in clinic that's completely free. Plus, the dental and vision plans are good as well, as they match a certain percentage of my 401k contribution, and they have a company-wide profit-sharing program. I could probably find another job that pays the same or slightly better, but such affordable and comprehensive healthcare? That's my win. I mean, it also helps that the company also actually fosters a good employee culture, but yeah, benefits, man. Story 45. I'm a multi-unit manager for an international fast casual chain. I make $63K a year, with bonuses and raises each year based on performance. I have a 401k, excellent health, dental, a company car, and phone. This is my first year on the job. I started at minimum wage, ringing in orders and working the grill. Always said yes to any opportunities and sacrificed a lot of personal time, family time, and basically all my time for a few years. Shift manager to general manager was quite an experience, seeing how thin the profit margins really are, and how to swing that number in the right direction was an eye-opener. The sacrifice paid off, though. People who worked under me respected my drive, saw that I was in their position only a few years earlier. I'm big on respect. You need to give it to get it. Simple as that. Once you have the respect of your people, everything else falls into place. Eventually, as GM, I had my store running itself. I had hired and promoted 2 great employees who I paid the same as I made. They were happy to get the training and ran my store at a level of expectation I set. At that point, my job was overseeing them, and I worked 30-hour weeks for the most part. This is when my boss noticed I could take on more responsibility and had a motivating effect on my people. Became multi-unit manager. Was extremely stressful in the beginning. Basically, I make sure the GMs are running their stores right. I'm the one who gets the "oh crap" phone calls and develops solutions. It can be weeks of long hours and weekend work, or it can be weeks of me just checking in with people. When I was offered the position, I was told, "You aren't going to need to work as hard, or as much as when you were GM, but when we need you to work, we need you to work." For the most part, I'm my own boss. I talk to my actual boss maybe once a month just to review what I'm working on in my district. It can be a lot of work, but it's liberating having the freedom to run my district as I see fit. Love this job, and I'm blessed to have gotten the opportunity to start from the bottom and the luck to have been at the right place at the right time. It's given me experience in developing processes to improve workflow and tons of experience working with different personalities. Story 46. So, for the last 3 years, I'm a scaffolder in Sweden. The job is not what you usually think, because we're a maintenance group in this sweet factory. Basically just slob around every day. We know, well, our supervisors like us very much, and are really happy when we actually do something, usually something easy. I'm working with 2 of my oldest friends, laugh all the time, the rest of the team are just the coolest. Also, no backstabbing, no intrigues like other jobs I've been. Free accommodation because we're from Bulgaria, and the best part is that we can work as much as we want. I mean, days in a month or months in a year. You just notify the boss for how long you want to stay on vacation and it's all good. So we travel home whenever we want to and have time with our families, which is pretty important. Can't complain about the pay, too. Last month, I cashed a sweet 4,000 euros, and for a Bulgarian dude with only a high school degree is damn good money. Me and my buds totally know how lucky we got finding these nice people here. Before that, I spent like almost 10 years around 8 different countries in Europe doing all kinds of crap work for lots of hours and couldn't save any money because of high rent prices. Hope we're all healthy and well so we can stay here till pension. Story 47. I work as a project manager for a major HVAC manufacturer in a major market. The product I work with is relatively new, and most of the older, more experienced people don't want anything to do with it. So I handle basically everything from design to sale to install. That being said, I've managed to train enough people, enough that now my job is essentially reminding people of what they should do. In 3.5 years since I graduated college, I've managed to pay off my loans, buy a house, start my company, paid MBA, start a decent 401k, and lived in 3 different states. All the while working basically 25 to 30 hours of actual work, with the rest being just surfing on YouTube or playing Warzone during the pandemic. What most people in my office don't realize is that they could learn most of my job in about 3 to 5 weeks. I make north of 6 figures, and I'm about to get promoted and bumped roughly 30%. Bonus is that my job is unlikely to get automated and unlikely to become obsolete. Story 48. I had been in my job for 4 years. I started out at a pretty low pay rate for what I was doing, and over the 4 years it had gone up a little, but they kept heaping more and more things on me to the point where I was doing parts of other people's jobs that made double what I did. I got tired of it and tired of the industry I was in, so I found and accepted a new job. The current job went overboard to keep me, to the tune of a 25% pay raise and profit sharing to potentially raise me up more than that. So now it's a year later. This all happened last August. I just got another raise, and I've hit profit share every quarter so far, with the last quarter being the most profitable in the history of the company. I've gone up almost 25k in the last year. In exchange, I get fed more difficult things to take care of, because my boss knows I follow through where a lot of people don't, and now it doesn't feel right to complain. Job duties: manage a department, handle IT and phones, help with R&D, previously all things I already did, and now I get fed pain-in-the-ass engineering tasks while not being an engineer myself. Story 49. I get paid more than enough for this crap, lol. I lost my job at the very end of 2019. Interviewed for a new job a couple months into 2020 that I am, probably not qualified for. Though I was upfront with my experience and what knowledge I lacked, they hired me on as a warehouse manager anyway. Keep in mind, I interviewed and was hired right before COVID-19 hit the US in a big way. The company was moving into my state, so didn't have a presence yet. They just got a small warehouse, no inventory yet, etc. It's been 6 or 7 months now. The warehouse is still mostly empty, between 50 and 100 pallets, in a warehouse that can hold 600 plus, and the number of orders I have to fulfill is minimal, anywhere from 0 to 25 a day, and sporadic. Any given day could be 0 orders or 25, with no real pattern. So for 6 or 7 months now, I've been getting paid $20 an hour to surf the internet, play games, scroll through Reddit, and stream TV shows with only the occasional order that needs to be processed. Best part? In the about 6-ish months I've been working here, I've only been working 6 or so hours a day, Monday to Friday, and I've already made roughly 75% of what I made at my last job after a full year of working anywhere from 5 to 7 days a week and between 8 to 12-hour shifts, varied based on the individual days/week's workload. So fewer hours, less stress, barely any work, and a major increase in pay? I'm effing here for it. Story 50. As with any smallish business, I wear several hats, but my title is community manager for a very large gated MP resort, second home community. It can be quite stressful, and in a way, I'm basically always on call, 24/7, 365, but most of my work can be done, and is done, from home, even pre-COVID, and the majority of my job is just delegating responsibilities to outside contractors, and then the department heads underneath me on the org chart, who then delegate directly to their subordinates from there. I also get a beautiful luxury lakefront condo included as part of my compensation and full access to the golf, lake club, pool, movie theaters, etc., and other amenities in the community. And I'm around $100K total comp, which is almost 4 times the median household income in the very small town the community is located in. All in all, I have little to complain about. Story 51. I'm a business intelligence developer for a large healthcare company. Data warehousing, data vault, DBase servers, that sort of stuff. I get paid $42K a year, plus health insurance, plus 26 working days holiday. Bank holidays not included in these 26, that's extra. To work from home, 9:30 to 5:30 with a 1-hour lunch, without any stupid deadlines, nice colleagues, super nice boss, paved the way for career growth, planning a jump to Germany in 2 years, and they pay about $75K there for my job. $42K may not sound like much, but I live in an area where the rent for my medium-sized apartment is just $570 a month. Plus, I'm 27 and just starting my career in data. 5 months in current job and still learning, and been a trainee data analysis and algorithm scientist for 18 months prior to this. Happy nugget here. I never finished my degree despite starting a BSc biomedical science one, because I went homeless. Crap happens, no help from the family, just bad luck, 3,000 miles away from my home country. Been a laboratory and process developing engineering tech for 4 years after getting back on my feet, and then took a leap to data work and never looked back. Okay, someone go in the comments and let me know, is there an abbreviation for that last job title of a laboratory and process development engineering tech? I just have a hard time believing that that's how he would refer to his job in casual conversation. Yeah, I'm a laboratory and process development engineering tech. That's quite the mouthful. So what does that really mean? Story 52. I used to get paid enough for this crap until my situation changed from 25 and single to 32 and has a son. I've been doing some home remodels, mostly kitchen cabinets, with my boss for about 7 years now. He's a small contractor. I make $25 an hour. I rarely pay for gas because I drive to the shop and we go to work from there. The shop is close by to where I live. I do not have benefits. He makes good money, like $100K I think. I pull in between $30K to $40K before taxes. Some years are better than others. Surprisingly, during COVID, we've worked steadily. I did have a month off, which is the time that would totally break me. I love what I do, but I feel I do not make enough. My situation is difficult. My girlfriend doesn't work and has 3 kids. 1 is mine. Rent out here exceeds what I make, and I don't think I could pay the bills and rent without going into huge debt. My boss keeps trying to push me to join the CDCR as a correctional officer, which I've really been considering. They have good benefits and pay. It's just the environment that sketches me out a bit. I feel I need to make a career change because of my situation. The cost of living, etc., I'm pretty much maxed out with my small company. Story 53. I'm a planting manager for my father's nursery. A good third of my job is going to people's houses and telling them they're being ignorant to what their trees, shrubs, or lawns need in our high-end desert climate. I've made cards for people's quick reference of what they need, and rarely are they anything less than appreciative. It more than makes up for the 100-degree days where we have to dig all day. It's always fantastic to have customers happy with you. It's even better when you estimate that it'll be about $100 in materials and about $100 in easy labor for my crew, and they're thrilled it would be that easy. Gives my guys the breaks they need and makes the surrounding 80 miles or so look a bit better. On the rare occasion that it's something actually obnoxious that I have to deal with, it's usually stupid enough that it's funny. Example, customer's son, 18 and 19, hit her 5-inch caliper tree with a tractor, killing it. Customer demands that we warranty the work, that's about 3 years outside the warranty, and replace the tree with one of equal size. It's a $9,000 to $11,000 tree to do that kind of labor and transport costs. Gives us a good chuckle every time it comes up. Story 54. Digital marketing for tech companies. But I'm in sales, so I'm basically a glorified greeter for our company subject matter experts. Prospecting, facilitating quick intro meetings, and then I pass it over to our smart folks to do the actual work. Our industry, by nature, is very siloed, and the companies we work with get a ridiculous amount of MDF, marketing development funds, from companies like Microsoft to IBM, etc. Basically, more money than they know what to do with. Very incestuous. I work from home. I'm salary, so the hours are whatever I want. I get commission on top of a great salary, and the way our engagements work means that if I close 2 to 3 deals every 6 months, I get 24 months of commission guaranteed, pretty much. This job affords me a ton of time to make music and spin with the kiddos, and it's very secure and profitable. Story 55. Definitely late to the party, but this is my husband. He's a corporate filer, already had $2 in cost of living raises in his first 8 months, and will be making over $20 an hour soon. His benefits are 100% paid for, and he gets 22 paid days off and unlimited unpaid days off. After 5 years, unlimited paid days off kicks in. Yes, that was not a typo. Their office features hanging chairs, basketball court, snack bar, and rage wine, always stocked in the fridge. After they approved everyone to work from home through the end of 2021, should they want to, everyone's choice, they bought everyone laptops and gave everyone a $1,001 to buy whatever they wanted for their home office. The plus $1 is because Google gave their employees $1,000 and they want to be better than their people from Google. He'll get another $1,001 next year. He gets a monthly stipend for snacks, since he's not at work for the snack bar or custom flavor spritzer water machine. His CEO sent out an email during all the fires nearly demanding that everyone take advantage of their opportunity to work from home and travel the country or overseas, and bask at cool Airbnbs because life's too short, and why the F wouldn't they? My husband literally spends his workday in a dope gaming chair his company paid for, getting high and listening to Joe Rogan podcasts while he clicks buttons and doesn't have to put up with any bullcrap at all with better benefits and perks than most government jobs. What makes it even better is I'm in real estate, so I make my own schedule. So we plan to spend this winter traveling together whenever and wherever the F we want. Story 56. I make just under 6 figures as a tax, accounting, audit associate 1 year out of college. My background is undergrad in finance and pursuing my MS in tax. A lot of people associate accounting as grueling work for low pay and long hours. It usually is if you like Big Four or large corporations. I get home at 6 and see my dog. Works well for me and pays what I believe is fair, and if it's not asking for a raise, is much more direct at a small shop. If you find a small or mid-sized shop where you add a lot of value, work with older individuals, less tech-savvy, or less up-to-date with modern client outreach, you'll be able to soar while spending most of the day on Reddit. If you can bring energy and a desire to optimize processes the owners don't have time to, you can become irreplaceable within months. Story 57. I own a barbecue cleaning company. I mainly deal with high-end, full stainless steel, natural gas, and propane barbecues. I imagine most of the barbecues I clean are dirtier than the inside of your car's engine. It's disgusting what people will cook their food on, especially considering how old grease, oil, and carbon produces carcinogenic smoke at high heat. I can take a razor blade to some barbecues, and if you get a nice long scrape with it, you can get a solid strip of old carbon/grease buildup that quite literally looks like a fruit roll-up strip made from black tar heroin. Clean your grills, people, or call me. $275 to clean a grill under 40 inches. Takes me between 2.5 to 4 hours depending on the condition. Supplies cost nearly nothing. I don't exactly enjoy this job, but it works for me at the moment. I don't own a gas barbecue, nor do I think I'd ever want one. Charcoal grills are way cleaner, worth the extra hassle. A $150 charcoal grill from Walmart is 10 times better than the $8,000 plus barbecues people buy, in my opinion. Expensive barbecues will not cook better meals. Story 58. Last year, I had a F it moment and quit my job and moved to Australia from the UK on a whim. No plan, no savings, no job lined up. Fast forward, a lot of crap. My job was to stand in the sunshine 1 minute from the beach, flirting with groups of girls from all over the world and sell them nightclub event tickets. Naturally, I would go out with them after work, which finished at around 10 to 11 p.m. I didn't work Sundays or Mondays. I worked around 4 to 6 hours a day. It was commission only and I had total freedom. I could literally go to the shop whenever I wanted. I used to go for a beer halfway through the shift, all the time, lol. I made over €1,000 in a day on a number of occasions, and over the 6 months I spent in Australia, I made and spent around 30,000 Australian dollars. I spent hundreds of hours hollering groups of girls walking past on the street and being accepted as well as rejected, and that is in itself valuable like you wouldn't believe. I don't want to sound braggy, but imagine all the girls I brought to the apartment for the after parties with my buddies and all the goings on. Best job ever. When you step into the scary unknown, you never know what you're going to stumble upon. Story 59. Telephone stockbroker for a major bank. We're the ones that people that have their own self-directed trading accounts call for assistance on things when the system won't allow them to do something, or if they need verifications. I sit my happy ass on a chair, talking to people and assisting with their issues. Starting wage is $43,000 per year, plus performance bonuses. Bonuses can be up to about $8K. Raises are based on your performance and quality. Max salary for my position is $60,000 per year, plus performance bonuses, for talking to people on the phone. Now, we need to be licensed, and we have to do a certain level of education, upgrading yearly, but I get paid to study and upgrade. Are there a-holes that make things difficult sometimes? Yes, but you can't take it personally. They aren't coming to your house for barbecue this Saturday. They don't know you. You're the voice of the company at that time, and for the most part, when you deal with these people, it's because there's an issue on a time-sensitive trade that they're freaking out about. You deal. Most people are not a-holes. 5 minutes explanation of the issue, or during the foreign currency transfer so no actual currency exchange happens. This is the most common. Trying to buy penny stocks in a retirement account that you aren't allowed that risk is one of the top calls. Story 60. I'm a financial analyst. I forecast future metrics for a large retailer. There was a struggle in my earlier years to finally get my degree, but was finally able to, and my career took off. I joined the Army to help pay for school, and after 6 years, I fulfilled my contract. I've worked some horrible jobs with even worse bosses for minimum wage, and look back at those days where I checked my bank account every time I had to get gas or go grocery shopping, and remain humble of my current position. Growing up where money was always tight and living day to day through my extensive college experience, I dreamed of one day having what I have now. I make $105K a year, and my wife, much smarter than me, pulls around $145K per year as a merchant. She experienced the same crap jobs for minimum wage pay. In fact, we met at one. I'm 29 and own a new car and just moved into the house we built, which is way bigger than I'm used to. Used to live in a cheap-ass brown recluse-infested apartment for 4 years where, if there was a stabbing or a shooting, it happened there. But that just made me more humble of my current situation. My job requires long hours, 80-plus hours, for budgets and forecasts about 15% of my year. But outside of that, it's smooth sailing. My boss and company I work for care about us, and we work from home due to COVID and get excellent benefits. I'm proud of the company I work for, and most importantly, now I never have to check my account. But still do because I'm a financial analyst and it's in my nature, and have saved a big enough chunk of change to buy another new car outright. I've been truly blessed looking back and seeing where I am now, and don't take it for granted. Story 61. I'm a monitoring engineer for deep water drilling operations. Basically, just do real-time remote monitoring for any exploration well being drilled in the world. Send all of the VPs an email every 6 hours with an update for each rig, and call the rigs to check on stuff and if I see anything that looks off. I've got a 12-screen array with real-time parameter readouts and direct video feeds to all of the rig and ROV, submarine robot things, cameras. As I type this, I'm watching a rig in the Gulf of Mexico, a rig in Africa, a rig in South America, and a rig in the Middle East. I work 12-hour days for 21 days straight in the office and then get 21 days of vacation, plus an additional 3 weeks of vacation each year, so I can take a whole hitch off each year and have a 9-week block of uninterrupted vacay. $225 to $250K per year depending on bonuses, full pension, 10% employer, 401k contribution, furnished corporate apartment, and $50 a day per diem when working, and travel reimbursed to get me back to work each time. It's a pretty sweet gig. Story 62. I'm the senior systems engineer for a mid-sized company for 20 years of legacy and reversed engineered custom software running all our crucial systems. I'm often referred to as the Office Sisyphus. For close to 10 years now, I've kept the creaking database working well enough to track and bill our clients. When we need to interface with a new system, I write the scripts. Every 6 months or so, I explain the system processes, dangers, and pain points to a new consultant or senior project manager who gets hired to replace one thing or another. Nothing ever gets replaced. Every couple of months, I track down some inane bug to some obscure vendor and spend a couple of hours or a couple days harassing them until it's fixed. Every couple of weeks, I implement a new feature on a system that was supposed to be retired years ago, or implement a technical workaround to a policy violation. I get paid mostly for my institutional knowledge and willingness to do absurd things when asked by the C-suite. That and a willingness to take over every system that no one else wants to learn, and to write compliance policies that no one will ever read. It sounds worse than it is. I have extreme flexibility in my work schedule, excellent benefits, a competitive salary, great coworkers, and I actually do believe in the company mission. But yeah, I get paid to warn people about the same mistakes only to watch them make those mistakes over and over. Story 63. I run a kids' entertainment company. The target demographic is rich parents. I dress up as princesses and get to do what I love, which is singing, acting, and dancing. I also get to do face painting, which I really love, and play games with the kids. It's generally only weekend work, besides school holidays and the occasional preschool graduation, and I get paid pretty damn well. I also have to do some design work and update the website and social media accounts, but that's kind of fun and a creative outlet as well. The only real work is doing things like taxes, which only takes up a very small portion of the year. The worst part of my job is dealing with incredibly entitled and demanding parents who think the sun shines out of their kid's ass, or dealing with parents who try to haggle with my fixed prices. The ones trying to haggle are also always the ones that expect the most, like me to bring mics and a PA system or decorate their party. No ma'am, I'm only the entertainment, not a party planner. Occasionally they think I'm just a dressed up babysitter and expect me to handle 20 plus kids by myself with no parental supervision, and I have to ask them to come back and supervise, as I will be damned if I'm put in a position that makes me liable for the well-being of heaps of kids. But at the end of the day, they're paying me a pretty penny to do what I love, and the kids are usually always sweethearts, despite their parents being whack jobs, so it's fine. Story 64. It's a temporary job, but the Census is totally a legit gig. I set my own hours for the most part, and I get to travel, which I love. Nothing crazy, just day trips and an overnight at most. And the pay is actually amazing. I get $25 an hour, but there are like a bunch of ways to earn on top of that. Work after 6 p.m., nighttime premium pay. Weekend, yep, that's a premium pay. And the few instances where I was able to work a Sunday, I also got overtime that's compounded the differentials. Sunday premium, nighttime differential, and overtime all wrapped together. Oh, and they pay us 57 cents per mile, so like I have a Prius, which means it's practically just money in my pocket. I wish it wasn't temporary, cause this is kinda a dream job for me. Also, all my bosses are hella nice, like legit have not met a single a-hole working with me. Downside, some neighborhoods can be terrifying to go into as a small queer woman, and I have like a 50-50 shot of it being a sexist old man who answers when I knock. Story 65. Probably the best one was being paid a full-time government salary. These days, that job would be around $35 to $40 an hour, plus bennies for working maybe 10 to 15 minutes per day. It wasn't that the job itself was a sinecure. Everyone previously in it had worked themselves to the bone. But a little computer scripting automated 98% 90% of the work. If I hadn't had to physically get out of my chair to swap a backup tape over every day, the entire job would have consisted of tending to the occasional printer jam once or twice a week, and otherwise looking like I was busy. It's honestly not incredibly difficult to fall into something like this if you have some basic programming knowledge and go for largely administrative, data diddling jobs, i.e., not technically in IT. Pretty much everyone with computer skills goes into computing or related fields, math, finance, engineering, or analysis, or specialist work, and sees admin work as low-level grunt jobs. So the majority of admin work has never had anyone in it who realizes that their computer could be doing the heavy lifting. There is a lot of low-hanging fruit. As long as your computer isn't being monitored down to the keystroke level, or there aren't regularly audited logs being kept on everything you run, it's usually not too hard to automate a bunch of stuff. And with the recent push of working from home, often you don't even have to look like you're busy anymore, and there's no commute, which is even better. Meanwhile, the work itself is getting done faster, to a higher degree of consistency, and always to the exact specs or requirements with no temptation to cut corners. On top of that, you can usually trivially keep your own logs of work done, and look through them for patterns which lend themselves to even more automation. Story 66. HVAC tech/installer. Granted, I'm a bit of an edge case because I own my own business and only have 2 employees. Live in a small town with an extremely low cost of living. I charge half the going rate. Everyone else who does anywhere near the volume of work that I do has 3 to 4 teams running and pushes financing and add-ons everywhere they think they can get away with it. I recently bid around $11K on a new house, and the next closest bid to me was $28K. I clear 6 figures most years, and I'm done with the bulk of my work at lunch every day. Run a lot of service calls on evenings, nights, and weekends, but I'm single with no kids and no other real obligations, so it doesn't bother me. I work a lot, and I don't mean to make it sound like I don't, but honestly, for what I do, it's not that bad. There's a lot of specialized knowledge, but nothing that I think would be out of the grasp of the average person. You get into some crazy electrical engineering crap sometimes if you need to get something running on the weekend, or on a 30-year-old unit you can't get parts for, or a bunch of other oddball cases. As an example, I replaced a system today, and the condensing, outside unit, wired into the air's handler's indoor unit power. Same breakers feed both. Incredibly stupid thing to do, but it's a 25-year-old unit in an 80-year-old house. I can't touch high voltage outside of my unit in town. I install heat pumps, so the condensing unit is also used in the heating. The breaker couldn't handle both the electric heat and heat pump at the same time, so I had to rig up a relay to turn one of the heat strips off if the condenser is running until the homeowner can get an electrician to come add a breaker and run me a wire. There are still days where I get a job that I absolutely don't want for any amount of money, but for the most part, I get paid more than enough to deal with most of what I do. Plus, most of the time when I leave a house, people are happy, and that's a nice change from my previous job where I just got screamed and yelled at all day, every day by management and my customers. Story 67. I worked at a family-owned hardware store since I was in high school. After graduation, I worked full-time for about 2 years. My friend told me about a job at a bank making $24K a year, which I took since I was living at home. I continued working 2 jobs for about 4 years to make all the money I could. I had knowledge and desire to learn computers, so I applied that to my banking career. After years of working in the banking world, I finally got my break into IT support for financial institutions. After years of work and jumping jobs, I now make $70K, no school debit. My wife followed a similar path and is now making over $50K, no school debit. I'm 37, she's 36. We make close to $120K a year and have 2 children. We buy what we want, but also make smart purchases. Use credit when it's free or really cheap. All learned from our banking careers. It's about learning and never settling for what you know you can achieve/deserve. Never give up, always push forward. Took any job I could get to where I wanted to be. Eventually I got there. Story 68. Internet/cable/telephone customer service rep at a small company. As you can imagine, the customers can be a-holes, especially since I'm the only one they call when their internet or TV stops working, and no one is able to stay calm when that happens, apparently. I work 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, and to help angry customers fix their internet, and help confused old people find what channel Judge Judy is on. I even once got a call from a 90-year-old woman asking how to reset the clock on her microwave after a power outage, lol, and though I wasn't trained for that, I'm proud to say me and old Irene figured it out together. I've been here for a year. I started making $18.95 an hour, renegotiated our union agreement after about a month working, and got a raise to $23.05 an hour. I get a raise every 6 months, and I'm now turning 20, making $24.45 an hour, with amazing benefits and 3 weeks of paid vacation a year, and I'm already paying into a pension. I always thought I needed college to get into a career that could support me for years to come, but here we are. As an aside, we also sell pay-per-view adult content on our cable, so I get to see what the creepy old men are ordering when I pull up their accounts. We get a ton of husbands calling in with angry wives in the background insisting the adult content on their bill wasn't ordered by them. Most times it is them. Sometimes it's the 13-year-old son thinking he's sneaky. Always makes my day. Story 69. Currently, I work as a certified public accountant and also deliver to DoorDash/Grubhub on the side. I make about $30 an hour on both jobs, and I think that's fair. I just this week started another independent contractor job that pays between $150 and $200 per hour. I've done a few assignments so far, and it was easy money, so I'm hoping to build it into a full-time business to replace my other jobs. I won't say what it is because if people knew how much money could be made for so little effort, everyone would be doing it and oversaturate the market. I just want to point out that if you look around and do some research, there are excellent opportunities out there that don't require a lot of schooling and/or training. Story 70. Some of these jobs make me jealous. Little background. Got thrown into trying a career while I had my first son at 17. Ended up going with Refrigeration. Couldn't afford school, so I bought Amazon books and taught myself while working as a tool female dog. I read books daily after working 8 to 10 hours a day, and eventually, after about 2 years, I had my own van doing light service. Another year, I was taking on-call on the weekends. Another few years, I was full service, brand new van, making probably about $60K a year, around 22 to 23. From then till now, 25, I've taken on-call 7 days a week for most of the year. I set up maintenance contracts, take the hard service calls, walk other technicians through the job, set up installs, and handle any other type of management work. I make a good amount now, and I'm next in line to own the business, actually. So, no, I don't get paid anywhere near making my job worth it. The job is filthy, cockroaches, people get pissy, and argue about everything and anything. The people who screw you, I have to make calls trying to collect as well, grueling 80-hour weeks at times. And the worst of all, the condescending attitudes of people. I make good money, often more than all the employees combined in most of the places I work at, and people see ripped/dirty jeans and treat me like trash. Story 71. Does being a wastewater engineer constitute enough for this crap? Crap is basically my bread and butter because everyone craps and someone has to eventually pay the people that deal with their crap and treat their crap so that the remaining water can safely be deposited back into a waterway. I spend my day consulting municipalities on how to best deal with their current problems at hand, be it complying with state standards or designing systems to resolve issues that pop up from dated equipment or poor engineering from the poor sap that designed the crap before me. Real talk though, it's fascinating what the industry's come up with as a way to biologically have bacteria consume the dangerous portions of human crap so that the final effluent is safe enough to be deposited back into a creek for Mother Nature to take care of. I wouldn't be drinking the plant's effluent anytime soon, but it is within a state-regulated range that's safe to be introduced back into the wild. As the state changes that regulation, be it science or politics, we adjust the systems to comply with those new regulations, making the waterway ever safer and more expensive year by year. Story 72. Cathodic Protection Technician. The bulk of the work is walking directly over buried pipelines to measure the effectiveness of their corrosion mitigation systems. Frequent 72-hour, 6-day weeks hiking through swamps, marshes, cornfields, dense forests, you name it, all with uncomfortable equipment strapped to you. Takes you to all sorts of backwater little towns in the US, but techs who spend most of their time on the road can clear $100K to $150K a year with all the overtime and travel bonuses. Disclaimer, this isn't my title. I'm an engineer who designs the systems to be monitored, but I've spent many weeks in the field to gain a better understanding of the work our technicians do so that I can be a better engineer. These guys are awesome and truly do get paid to do that crap. Story 73. I'm a subject matter expert. I went to school for a long time, got a bunch of degrees and certs, and a couple years work experience. I sit in my home office and virtually attend a couple meetings a day where I give advice to management. Then I answer some emails. On a given day, I do about 4 hours of work. Pre-COVID, once a month I would fly out to one of our suppliers to do an inspection. I work for a big fish, so they wine and dine me, and usually I get tickets to a show or sporting event. I spend a day inspecting the equipment, going over some defects, talking to a couple key folks, then I fly home, write a report, and submit to my boss. We were all grounded until 2021, so we do virtual tours. The folks in the factory send us pics and video, and we do our best to address concerns. I miss traveling. I get paid very well for this, plus stock options, an amazing 401k, free health insurance, and a whole bunch of other perks. Story 74. I install and maintain portable water treatment systems and portable vapor recovery systems around underground fuel storage tanks. I'm just a souped-up handyman, part mechanic and part detective, and part truck driver. I spend approximately a third of my working hours on the road traveling to sites. I do basic plumbing and electrical, run small and large excavators and bobcats, etc. to bury piping. I love my job. I set my own hours, decide which sites I want to visit based on the telemetry from the equipment at each site. If something goes wrong, the system shuts down and sends me an email. And have seen my boss maybe 3 times this year. Company provides me with a take-home truck to drive, buys the gas and tools. I just have to keep all of the systems above 90% runtime. Currently have 6 systems all around the state to maintain. Been doing this about 10 years at a couple different companies. Story 75. Low-level security, graveyard shift. I spend 90% of my time on shift browsing Reddit/the internet or reading books, just because there isn't a whole lot of traffic to monitor at night. I'm allowed to do this. I'm doing this right now. I get paid significantly more than any of my previous jobs, all of which were retail except for one in fast food, and I'm frequently called in to fill extra positions when fellow workers get quarantined, which pays me time and a half for overtime. As much as I hate the problems I have to deal with, boredom at work, a dog and family making sleep difficult, call-ins filling my limited free time, it's really hard to complain with earning anywhere between $500 and $1,000 a week to chill out in a chair by an x-ray machine. Story 76. HVAC. You can make good money working for a company. Some even offer you a sign-up bonus. Biggest one I saw this year was $4,000 for a year commitment. This was just a basic residential company too. There's tons of specialized fields you can go in between residential or commercial heating and cooling, freezers and coolers, ventilation systems, inspections, etc. If you have any type of people skills, then once you get trained up and experience, you can go into business for yourself and then make really killer money, or will find yourself moving up a company and getting increased pay. The worst part is the attic. If you can take the heat or live in an area where you do mostly heating and don't have to worry about 130 plus degree attics in the summer, then everything else is a breeze. You get to travel to different locations. People are almost always super happy that you're fixing their system. It's rewarding work because you're helping people who are in a bad spot. So at the end of the day, you feel accomplished. And it's not the exact same thing every single day, especially troubleshooting and not installs, because every house/business is a new problem. I've been offered everything under the sun by happy customers and have routinely been given steak dinners or fresh caught fish that they were fixing while I was there. I cannot even count how many beers or bottles of alcohol I've been offered. Last year, I made a call on Christmas Day, and the customer was so happy I came out that they literally gave me a $50 gift card to a restaurant on top of paying me. I routinely get offered tips, almost always turn them down because, as I tell the customer, my prices are fair for everyone involved. I worked hard for 4 to 5 months out of the year and make enough money for the rest of the year, including savings and retirement. The other 7 to 8 months, I basically have a completely flexible schedule, spending time with family, travel, work on other projects/hobbies. I could even do other seasonal work if I really wanted to. It's just the best. Story 77. I'm working 2 full-time jobs now, and it's super easy. All with a family of 4, full-time in the corporate office, telework, of a Fortune 500, $38 an hour, and full-time working in economic disaster relief program answering phones, $32 an hour. I put in a full day, 7 a.m. to 3:30, 40 hours per week in each job. Over the summer, I also got my loan mortgage originator license and did that job for a month with paid training. Decided to go with the disaster relief job as my second job instead because it was easier. Riding this work from home train as long as I can, paying off debts left and right, and saving up. I realize most are not this lucky, but if you look hard enough, there are easy jobs paying $30 plus for telework positions right now. Easy to work 2 full-time jobs if you do it just right. Next baby arrives in less than a month, so RIP to my regular life. Story 78. I'm only in student internship right now, but it's pretty great, and I make $20 an hour for the semester. It's a small non-profit, so I wear a lot of hats, have different titles depending on the job I'm doing. But I love the team and their goals of marine rehabilitation through cleanup projects and invasive species removal. Was really lucky to get this job. I just saw an article about European green crab. got pretty upset over his little was being done and sent an email to the organization mentioned, was offered a job and took the semester off school. Edit, forgot to say what I actually do. I do a lot of research and present our cause to potential funders and First Nations whose territories we would like to do some work in. I work from home but get to help out with any field work happening near where I live, and get paid for my travel time. In my opinion, there's no crap about it. I love my job. Story 79. I'm an administrative assistant for a nonprofit. I make minimum wage in the area, $13, but it's state work study, and I'm more of a helper than anything. Answer the doors, occasionally write up minutes from a recorded meeting, and spend the rest of my time scanning documents and putting them into a database I made. It's more boring than anything, but my coworkers have a good personality, and as I'm only there 3 days a week, I don't deal with a lot of office drama. Honestly, most of the time my coworkers forget I'm there, especially if I'm in the copy room, where I tend to spend whole shifts, so I don't have a lot of overhead either. I even get my own cubicle, and it's set up to be pretty private. I can come in, make a coffee, and then just do my work until it's time to leave. No meetings, no long email chains, just old records, the scanner, and my database. Story 80. I make $16.50 an hour at Walmart. I work part-time, yet I can afford to live in a 3-bedroom townhouse with a roommate with top-speed Wi-Fi. I get 10% off groceries, 20% off once a month, and I get 30% off my monthly phone bill so I can afford top-of-the-line phones. All of this, and I still have money left over to put into my savings, often $100 every 2 weeks, which has been adding up quite nicely. I'm just putting in my time at this point. The job is brain dead, but I can get away with listening to music or podcasts with my Bluetooth earbuds. I'm wanting to have a good savings built up so I can do some more risky endeavors in my 20s, though things will be getting more expensive soon as my student loan payments start this month, and Canadian winter puts quite a big dent in the electricity and heat bill. Still, it's hard to not feel comfortable, even if the work is crap. Story 81. I used to be a nurse's aide. The only good thing about the job were the nice patients. I made $8.50 an hour, and I couldn't afford anything. I left work crying one day because I had worked 3 doubles in a row, mandatory overtime, came into work the next day to get yelled at for not coming in early for mandatory training, threatened with firing if I missed another one. It wasn't the yelling or threatening, but just the pressure that I was working my ass off, and I knew it wasn't enough, and that's when I started looking for another job. I got a job as a janitor for $12 an hour. I did everything they wanted and then some. I was effectively making overtime all the time. I volunteered for every task they offered, ended up doing jobs well outside the scope of janitor, including part cleaning and chemical handling. I went to the store to buy stuff they wanted with a company card. I cleaned any mess they wanted me to clean up. When the other janitors all quit and they had trouble finding replacements, I worked 6 days a week for 10-hour shifts. I was a temp. I didn't care. I was making enough to pay all my bills and take my wife out once a month. I got hired on just before a hiring freeze. They ended the janitor positions entirely and I got promoted. Long story short, I've moved to another state after they closed that facility, and I went from struggling at $8.50 while renting a trailer to $23 and owning a house. I still do whatever jobs come by that they can't get anyone else to do, and I'm looking at either another promotion or maybe management in the near future. Won't know for a few months. Story 82. I teach a team of agents how to sell insurance, the kind that people legally have. I don't have to sell anything or even talk to customers. It's so simple. I make $61,000 a year. I have no college degree, and when I started this job 3 years ago, I was making $36,000. I get a raise almost every 3 months and basically doubled my salary since I was hired. I'm on pace to make $70K by this time next year. The company moved me from Buffalo, New York to Kansas City, Kansas for free, and even gave me a $5,000 bonus for the inconvenience of moving. Sometimes I have to deal with some punk employees, but other than that, the job is pretty amazing, especially after doing nothing but working in restaurants my entire life prior to this. Story 83. Nope. Operating dozens of different pieces of equipment, most in the 100 to 800K price range on active Airfield. Dealing with avoiding people, buildings, other equipment, traffic, and multi-million-dollar aircraft. Quite stressful, head on a swivel, need 3 hands at times, listening to 3 radio sets on 2 radios, predicting where aircraft are going to taxi so not to be there then. Dealing with a foreman that expects everyone to read his mind and has people skills of a grizzly bear makes it worse. You never know if he'll actually explain something or just yell. so often just left guessing on what he's expecting. CDL Class A with tanker required. Expect someone to pick up everything within a few days because it's a journeyman position. Problem is that it doesn't even pay first-year apprenticeship pay. No one I worked with had gone through any apprenticeship. Work 170-hour months but only get paid for 160 because rarely allowed breaks other than a non-paid lunch. Got yelled at several times for going to use the bathroom and taking too long, 10 to 15 minutes, between stopping at the shop, walking in the building, taking off some gear, pooping, gearing back up, and back in the truck, loader, etc. Pay? $23.60 an hour, or about $36K after taxes. In the $35 an hour range would be more in line with proper union wages. Story 84. I used to work third shift at a tiny little gas station / smoke shop. The pay was minimum wage, but the shop would literally be dead within 2 to 5 a.m. Total ghost town. Due to security reasons, I wasn't even allowed to leave my little armored box. So I would spend my time eating, playing games on my laptop, watching movies, doing homework, even napping. If the odd person did come around while I was napping, they would just knock on the window to wake me up so I could complete their transaction, then right back to sleep. I'm a pretty bad insomniac, so I would literally be doing the exact same stuff I was at home. Only difference was I was getting paid to do so. Only reason I left was because the manager wanted me to move to a different store about 10 miles away. I had no car and public transport would only get me about a third of the way there. The job was easy, but no way would I be spending 2+ hours working for minimum wage. Story 85. Now, I don't actually have to deal with a lot of crap since COVID, but I'm owner and CEO. I don't actually hold a title other than director or draw salary from that position of a holding company that owns lots of smaller businesses, including a restaurant, computer repair shop, computer forensics lab, video production house, software development, etc. 95% of the money comes from the software company, while the rest are hobbies that break even. Pre-COVID, this would involve flying around the country since none of the businesses are in the same place. So in the same week, often same day, I'd be a repair tech in the morning, a waiter in the afternoon, and a bookkeeper at night. 20+ hour days usually. Since COVID hit, I can't travel interstate and the restaurant is closed. I've been largely holed up in my beach house, so it's wake up, telemeetings and emails, then piss off scuba diving for the day. It's actually causing me some problems. I've gone from borderline underweight to obese in just a couple of months, and catastrophic emptiness and lack of fulfillment. Story 86. I'm writing software for the logistics industry that replaces 50-year-old tech. It's an amazing opportunity, and I might get rich from it. I can't recommend a career in tech enough, especially in companies that were early adopters for tech, banks and insurance companies and logistics companies that are still running COBOL code, or are running on Oracle, and still have their own data centers, because they're too old to be compatible with the cloud or gold mines. All you have to do is have a high tolerance for bullcrap and a willingness to deal with old tech. They overpay anyone who will work there because it's hard as hell to find rockstar programmers that are willing to work on ancient code. I say bullcrap. Here's what that means. Imagine an ancient piece of crap software stack that's riddled with the mistakes of 40 years of coders of dubious ability. The software stack does one thing well. It generates money with little to no effort. Right now, but it's not really internet ready. The reason no one gets rid of it is because it's a cash cow, and it generates amazing amounts of money every single day. But it's really inefficient and really hard to modify. But again, it practically prints money. If you're willing to work for weeks or make the smallest change to this software, you can make a 6-figure income. Companies with ancient software overpay people to deal with their bullcrap. So the crap version of code pays well. That's what I'm trying to say. Story 87. A little late to the party, but customer support on phone for insurances. Basically, people's car broke down and they call us to organize an assistance. Tow truck, RC, hotel, etc. We also do home assistance and travel. Not much here lately. Guess why? Not a bad job, but almost every day there are at least 2 to 3 clients who either entitled and think they'll get everything, looking at you BMW owners, gypsies who use the system and want to get RC for the weekend to smuggle stuff. Most RC have all of the blacklists nowadays. People who are lied to by insurance agents and think they have something covered when in fact they do not. We're the valve here, as everybody tells us. And those are just clients from one insurance company. We cover a lot more, and there are way too many stories for just one comment. But the pay is good and hours are nice since there are more of us and you don't have to work every day. Story 88. I'm a gambler. I gamble only on UFC fights, which I love watching anyway. I basically just work a single 5 to 6 hour shift every time Sunday that the UFC is on. So yeah, making cash watching something I'm going to watch anyway, lol. Every time I consider getting a real job, the idea just falls apart in my head. If I work 40 hours a week at a place that pays $20, that'll be $800 a week. And then I'd have to pay taxes. With gambling, I can make 3 to 4 times that on a Sunday for no real hours worked, and I don't have to pay taxes at all on gambling in my country. And not to mention, I don't have to spend any time at all working during the week. It's great, but I used to be super motivated to push towards certain things. Now, I wake up on Monday morning after a gambling day, and all I can think of is what's the point of doing anything when I've already made enough cash for the month just yesterday alone? I'm going to quit soon, I think. Gambling has been too good to me, lol. Okay, so we didn't get a whole lot of information here, but I'm pretty certain that it's impossible to make a sustainable, reliable living on gambling because you're not always going to win. Like, what happens when your bets don't hit for the month? You got to get up off your ass and go do something. So yeah, that's a horrible idea. I don't know how it works in OP's country, but that I would not advise doing that. Story 89. I work as a textile designer at an LA fashion company. I basically do Photoshop work for 8+ hours per day, with a handful of time working in proprietary product line software, sending emails, going to meetings, now on Zoom, and organizing artwork. I'm 6 years in, but even when I just started, it was the most money I'd ever made. Previously, I'd worked in kitchens for $14 an hour max. I got laid off, and out of the blue, a friend asked if I knew Photoshop well. I had a decent amount of know-how and a fair amount of artistic skill, and managed to get hired as his assistant with no prior experience in the field. My kitchen work ethic and speed paid off very rapidly. I got well known for completing prints very quickly and always making deadlines. Don't let people tell you that disparate vocations aren't relevant to one another. Thanks to the pandemic, I'm working from home and am able to freelance at night easily, so I'm effectively making double my normal in-office salary. I highly recommend getting into print and textile design, or even graphic design in general. Each company is different with what they expect of you, but the pay is always fantastic for not a ton of stressful work, especially compared to kitchen bullcrap, and at the end of the day, you get to make beautiful art for people. Story 90. 30-ish, no post-secondary position, and a wildly varied resume. I'm the PR person for a popular YA author who's really chill and generous human. It's easy to hype up someone who does genuinely good work and promotes a message you believe in. I fell into this job completely by accident, with zero experience. I was working a dead-end insurance office position, making barely enough to cover the bills with a 1.5-hour commute. I worked 5 years for that company and only received one raise because there was always something wrong or not good enough with my work, when it was just an excuse for the hiring/HR manager to make more money. Because she got a profit percentage. Every day I considered jumping in front of a train. Now I make twice that. I work from home, before COVID. I create and manage my own projects. I work on what I want, when I want. I have unlimited PTO and sometimes get to travel to cool places and meet cool people. Story 91. I bar back at a local pub, but also DJ and host trivia. I get to have fun by learning how to DJ better and just bullcrap with people all night. Then I help the bartenders close. That's when it's gross, dirty, and sometimes dangerous. Most of it's taking out extremely heavy trash bags full of broken glass and spilled beer into a big dumpster that's neck height, sweeping, mopping, cleaning the occasional vomit off the floor or parking lot, etc. The dangerous part comes when you have alcoholics go into rages for one reason or another, or strangers who need a ride home or something like that. I've been alright so far, but I could totally see where something crazy might happen one day. In the meantime, the money is pretty good. Story 92. I work as an IT field tech. I've been self-employed in this business for 15 years and make $100 plus an hour. I went to college but studied in a completely unrelated field. No one cares what I went to college for or what initials go after my name. They only care if I can fix their problem. This career path has been a lesson in believing in myself and knowing my worth, specifically the value I provide. Once I realized what that value is, I began to change accordingly. And there's no way I could ever go back to working for someone else. You'll need well-honed troubleshooting and diagnostic skills to command the best rate your area will support. These do not always have to be learned in an IT context. I found that a broad knowledge base obtained from experience in multiple areas can often be better. Some of my skills come, as expected, specifically from learning IT and electronics. What makes that knowledge even more powerful and more readily able to be leveraged is being able to also bring to bear the knowledge I gained in other areas, such as learning to work on my own cars, woodworking when I was a young man, working on my own guitars, employing the things that I learned during my time in EMS, and so forth. So, what in the hell do these other things have to do with IT? At face value, not much. The value is that these days everything is networked and computer controlled. Understanding not only the computer and network equipment, but the equipment it controls is immensely valuable and has been one of the key elements in my ability to separate myself from the pack in my market. Another way in which these non-tech skills have been useful is that the troubleshooting processes I learned and used in those jobs have been invaluable to me all these years later. Sometimes the fault isn't in the IT equipment, but maybe a basic electromechanical switch that's gotten gummed up, or an analog motor or servo has failed. Maybe a bearing needs to be greased, a housing has to be cleaned out, or some electrical contacts need to be cleaned off. The client doesn't care where the problem is. They care that they're unable to do what they do to make money because the equipment they need to do it is down, and they want a person who can fix whatever it is. Be that person and you can collect that money. Don't just be good at what you do, be effing great at it. Bring to bear every tool to have at your disposal and believe in yourself. That's what will allow you to quite literally write your own ticket. Story 93. No college degree. I work for a think tank that deals with critical threat assessment. My role within the TT is to conjure up scenarios that might happen and responses to those theoretical scenarios, as well as contingencies in case Plan A fails. Sometimes we get doomsday scenario requests and have to predict the public's likely reaction. It often involves going out into areas of target areas and interacting with various archetypes from various demographics, which is often mistaken for me being a door-to-door salesman because I can't exactly tell the people I interact with that I'm being nosy for a possible scenario involving mass catastrophes. TLDR, I get paid salary plus benefits for sitting on my bum and thinking of various bad things that can happen and possible prevention to the pretend bad stuff. Story 94. This is nowhere near the level of most of these, but it's a lot for me. I'm an overnight clinical aide at an addiction rehab facility. I get paid $13 an hour to spend 5 to 6 hours scrolling Reddit or watching Netflix, and 2 to 3 total hours actually doing things. I was a high school and college dropout, have a really crappy work history, and no real experience or education. Basically, no one on the planet wanted to hire me. I got lucky and somehow made a good impression on my boss in the interview, and was offered the job on the spot just over a month ago. There's a pretty high turnover, even on third shift, but I'm honestly not sure why. Upper management kinda sucks, but they're nice enough people that we don't have to deal with them anyway. The main ramification we see is that patients aren't really punished for bad behavior or rewarded for good behavior, so problem people run free when they're here. But there's never more than a few of them. They're usually asleep most of our shift anyway, and half the time it's not our problem regardless. We're told to just make note of who's doing what and send an email to the appropriate therapist or other clinical stuff. There's also a lot of inconsistencies in rules and such, but the worse it gets is confused parents when you have to explain why they've been told different things. Overall, for being in a state where minimum wage is 7-something, I'm pretty happy. My only duties are usually just checking on certain patients on X floor every 30 to 60 minutes, answering questions, and occasionally getting things for the 1 or 2 patients that wake up and leave their rooms, and waking up certain people for medications or appointments. Some nights I'm on a 1-to-1, which means I sit in the bedroom of or outside the door of a patient who needs someone with them 24/7. But most of them sleep through my entire shift anyway. Other nights I do intake and admissions, which for third shift is just a few hours of folding clothes, filling out mindless paperwork, and dropping luggage where it needs to go, followed by absolutely no responsibilities for the rest of the shift. Sometimes patients come up and talk to you because they're feeling down, but I don't mind that. And that's it. That's all I do. 90% of the time, I'm getting paid to be on my phone. My coworkers are amazing, my direct supervisor is amazing, and even the patients are usually really nice. I love my job. Story 95. It may not be as much money as some people here, but I drive full-time for Uber Eats, and actually kind of enjoy it. I average between at least $15 an hour to upwards of $20 to $25 an hour, mostly on weekends. The car I drive is pretty efficient, so for an 8-hour shift, I spend about $8 to $10 in gas. I'm not super concerned about benefits right now, but I know there are some through the app for different tiers. And I always work enough to get to the highest tier. Admittedly, haven't used any of them. I got out of a pretty bad relationship I've been in for 3 years about 6 months ago, and I'm in the process of just trying to rebuild my life. I have my kids every other weekend, but other than that, have no real obligations, so most of my time is spent either working, getting high, or playing video games, lol. It's better than driving passengers for Uber. Only delivering food means I mainly just deal with restaurant folks, since most people just want their food left on the doorstep. I drive around for 8 to 12 hours a day listening to podcasts. I know it doesn't work for everyone, and it's not really what I want to do long term, but it works for my situation right now. Hoping to get back to school within the next year or so and finish out my degree so I can actually do what I want, either data analysis or VR programming.